Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 4, session 1D, the Mid-Atlantic Data Justice Collaborative and Overview. My name is Ariel Wharton, and I'm a climate change specialist for SIEGE at the University of Maryland. Within this session, we are going to kind of give an overview of one of our extremely impactful projects within the center that we have been working on. Communities of color in the Mid-Atlantic region, the Mid-Atlantic region have long endured systemic racism and environmental injustice. Factors such as highways, industrial activity, poor zoning, and planning have created unhealthy environments, disproportionately affecting people of color and perpetuating a cycle of inequality. These communities face higher exposure to air and water pollution, inadequate housing, and insufficient infrastructure, leading to profound health disparities and diminished quality of life. One of the critical challenges faced by these communities is heightened exposure to air pollution, particularly from sources like major transportation hubs, industrial facilities, and heavily trafficked roads. The Mid-Atlantic Data Justice Collaborative recognizes this issue and is actively supporting community-driven strategies to gather data on local air pollution, with a specific focus on traffic-related particulate matter, or otherwise known as PM, PM10, PM2.5, and PM1. Particulate matter poses severe health risks, including cardiovascular disease, reduced lung function, increased asthma rates, emergency room visits, diabetes, and higher overall morbidity and mortality rates. This project's significance lies in its community-based approach to collecting detailed neighborhood-level air pollution data, addressing a critical data gap that has hindered informed action for too long. Now, in this session, panelists from the African Methodist Episcopal Church, otherwise AME, Reed Temple, specifically RDC, United Church of Christ, and Interfaith Power and Light DMV will discuss their work with the Data Justice Collaborative and to expand air quality monitoring to understand and address cumulative impacts of air pollution in overburdened communities in the Mid-Atlantic. Additionally, panelists will discuss challenges that have experienced about environmental justice and lessons learned, and best practices that attendees can use in their efforts to advance environmental, climate, and energy justice through partnerships and collaborations with groups within the region. Welcome, panelists. We first have on our panel Ms. Edna Primrose, who is the Environmental Justice Ministry Leader within the AME Church, specifically Reed Temple. We have Reverend Marvin Silva, who's the Associate Conference Minister of Justice and Witness Ministries within the United Church of Christ. And we also have Robin Lewis, the Director of Climate Equity for Interfaith Power and Light, DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. Welcome, panelists. At this point, I am going to allow you to introduce yourselves and tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, how you got into your work, and what you actually are doing within your communities. Ms. Primrose, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, it's my pleasure. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here this morning, and thank you so much for joining. I'm Edna Primrose, and I am founder and president of Differenza, a consulting firm that focuses on workforce development and community development, particularly around water access and equity. I spent many years working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development Agency, where I not only served as chief operating officer, but also as assistant administrator for water and environmental programs, which was a $2 billion loan and grant program for rural communities. I think throughout my career, I've really been involved in working on behalf of communities that sometimes are not seen or heard. And so environmental justice is something that is near and dear to my heart, not only professionally, but also personally. And I'm happy to be working with Reed Temple, where I am a member, on our new EJ, Environmental Justice Ministry Initiative, which I'll talk about later. Thanks.
Thank you. Robin?
Hi, I'm Robin Lewis. I'm the Director for Climate Equity at Interfaith Power and Light, DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia. Also the facilitator for Green the Church DMV, which is an organization we just created and we're expanding on to build power in the Black church around environmental justice issues and sustainability and having prophetic words about creation care to our congregation and to our communities. I've been working in EJ for over a decade now in different capacities for different nonprofit organizations, affordable housing. I've fought against trash incinerators in Prince George's County, which thank God we don't have one. I fought also for water quality and against fracking and various things in terms of environmental justice. So, I've been doing this work for a bit, very passionate. This actually work combines my faith as well as my passion for the environment. So it's actually the perfect job. So I'm really excited about this. And as you'll see, as we discuss more and more, I'll become more and more animated and passionate about this topic. So thank you for having me on the panel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Marvin Silver. I serve as the Associate Conference Minister with the Central Atlantic Conference of the United Church of Christ and the Director of our Justice and Witness Action Network. My role with the Central Atlantic Conference is numerous, but I'm responsible across our region, which includes New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia. I'm responsible for organizing our local churches' engagement in their faith calling to do the work of justice. I'm a passionate justice advocate. I really sort of identify myself as a community organizer, political strategist, and movement builder. And that's the work that I've been working on over the last 5 years within this region, trying to build a justice and witness action network, essentially a justice movement of local churches, clergy, and justice leaders building and organizing power to secure a just and compassionate world for all. So throughout my career, even in this setting and prior to this setting, I've worked on numerous campaigns throughout the United Church of Christ. Because of our history and well-known work around environmental racism and environmental justice, I've always had an opportunity to work on these issues from time to time, but excited at the work that I'm doing right now with trying to build an environment and climate justice network amongst our churches in the region, and doing that in partnership with Siege and an IPO here.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you for that. At this point, we will move into our questions. I do have an initial question for all of you, and this is just, to get the fire going, to start the engines up. So as this is an EJ symposium, I believe it's only fitting that we ask how you became engaged within your spaces, environmental justice, and what does environmental justice mean to you? And anybody can jump in and take the first answer.
Well, I'll go first. So I really feel like my mother probably is the first person who influenced the way I feel about environmental justice and environmental racism. She's really been a civil rights advocate my entire life. She actually took me to the March on Washington when I was a baby, and I've been involved ever since then. And so I think in the positions that I've held, I've really become aware of how inequitable not only our society, but our environment is. And so it has really moved me when I think about communities that are not seen or heard or consulted, and how those communities are impacted by environmental changes, environmental regulations, all kinds of social determinants of health erupt as a result of that kind of discrimination and inequity. And I feel like I really want to make a difference as much as I can. So again, I've chosen careers that help me to be a voice and also to advocate and engage with communities to make sure that their voices are heard. And I think working with Reed Temple is really important to me because this EJ ministry is something new. It's not even a year old yet, this latest initiative. And so I have the opportunity to bring my experience to the table, working with all kinds of amazing, talented people like Robin Lewis, and really create a community of advocacy and consciousness around changing lives and changing our communities. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I also serve on other boards that are specifically around environmental and climate justice.
Me or Reverend Silver, I'll take it next. So this is a space in which I'm extremely passionate about because I'm originally from Jersey. So I grew up around a lot of pollutants. My dad was one of the first Black professional painters in the Painters Union in New York. So of course I was exposed to all kinds of paint before OSHA came around. So I see impacts. My dad passed from cancer of the throat, which probably had to do with a lot of exposure. My brother, who also went into the industry, is suffering with various health issues. I have asthma. So, personally, I've been impacted by the environment as well as family members. And then growing up in a toxic environment in the North Jersey, then when I moved down here, the list goes on. We still have toxic environments. We have communities that don't have a voice, like Edna said. We have leaders that aren't considering bringing chairs to the table, and kind of bring them to the table after the fact. After decisions are made, then it's like, well, what do you think about this decision that we made? And it's no input from the community. So as an activist, my whole charge has been to bring a voice to the least of these, the people who don't really have the time. They're so busy surviving. They're, so busy trying to live and raise their children in a healthy environment with lack of access to adequate food, to water, issues with lead and other issues in our water. So we as faith in the faith community need to raise up these voices. It is our responsibility. And, I feel like I was called to this, to help people speak, because I'm a talker. So I might as well use my gift, and advocate for those who don't know how or don't know where or who to talk to. So I feel blessed to be in this environment, work with Reverend Silver. My denomination is United Church of Christ, and work with Reed and the AME denomination. I'm so excited to be working with all of these different faith communities and elevating our voices together, because that's what we need. The power is in community and in us bringing each, no matter what your denomination, no matter what you believe, bringing us together to support people who can't and don't have the capacity to speak for themselves. So I'm honored to speak up and listen and hear what the community has to say, and make sure we are doing what the community needs and wants, and they have their own self-governance. So I'm excited. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I think for me, similar to Edna and Robin, I come to this this work of environmental racism, environmental justice out of my own life experiences, growing up in the dichotomy of the suburbs of Washington, D.C. and Prince George's County, but going to school in Southwest Washington, D.C., one living in the suburb where it's nice, clean air and clean streets, clean environment, and then going to school in Southwest Washington, D.C., essentially in what we would call today as a ghetto, a very poor community. So experiencing that sort of every day, 5 days a week, sort of impacted me. And part of that as well is my dad worked not too far from that same area where I went to school. He worked with an industrial company whose primary business was the recycling of paper and other metals and goods. So that just sort of was just present in my upbringing and how we lived our lives as a family. And my family is from rural North Carolina, rural people living on the farm, living off the land. They bring a certain way of connecting with the land and with the environment in different ways than people do who oftentimes grow up in the city. But beyond just my own life experience and what have I experienced as a child, just my calling as a faith leader, as a justice advocate, I think really brings me to this work, brings me to any particular issue, because I'm not passionate about just one issue per se. I'm passionate about justice. So I can come in and out of any different issue, understand the context of what's taking place, how people are being impacted with it, and bring my skills to build a sort of a community and build power to bring about the change that's necessary.
Wow, absolutely. Thank you for those passionate responses. I feel it. I've had the pleasure of working with you all. So thank you for that. And I think Reverend Silva, I'm coming right back to you with this question. So, Robin, you mentioned faith, not even only just faith-based organizations, but community and the importance of coming together. So my question for you, Reverend Silva, is faith-based organizations often have unique perspectives and values. How do you bridge this gap, the gap between religious values and environmental advocacy within the UCC?
Sure. I would say for me, both personally and professionally, I don't see that there is a gap or a conflict between the values of the two different movements. I think it's really about sort of a dance. I think there's some similarities across the different values of the environmental and climate justice movement, as well as those who seek to do the work of justice from a perspective of faith. But when there's moments where there's a perceived or perception of a conflict, I think that's an opportunity to come together as people of faith and people environment justice community to really talk about how to press forward and how to find a way forward where we could do the work together, and that best serves the people and also serves the environment long term. So I think there's some universal principles that sort of lead us to a strategy to overcome any perceived conflicts around our values as institutions and as movements.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Do any of our panelists have anything to add to that question? Okay. So just to follow up within that space, Reverend Silva, can you share some specific examples of how the UCC has been actively involved within environmental justice initiatives, particularly within addressing pollution, air pollution, and its impacts?
Sure. Well, most recently, not too long ago, about 3 years ago, and excuse the phone ringing in the background, um, there was a report building off of some of our historic initiatives and witness going back to the early 80s that we worked closely with an organization called the Environmental Integrity Project to issue a new report called Breath to the People, Sacred Air and Toxic Pollution. It was a report prepared for our denomination to sort of highlight what we call the 100 super polluters in populated areas across the U.S. And this report was released back in 2020, actually on Ash Wednesday. It was part of a news conference, and there was a website that was created with a U.S. map that sort of dotted out where with factory icons that sort of invited people and the public in general to see if the air that they breathe contains toxic emissions from any of these 100 super polluters that covers about 28 states. So those are some of the most recent things that I've sort of taken note of and that we highlight as part of our work here in the Central Atlantic Conference, working with our churches. And that website is still available and still can be accessed at ucc.org/breathe to the breath to the people. And you can still see whether or not you live anywhere near one of these 100 super polluters, and use that data, use that information as part of your efforts to overcome the challenges that you're facing in your community. So those are some of the one of the things I sort of highlight as the work that has come out of our national offices and that our national leaders have focused on organizing our local churches, clergy, and justice leaders to play a role in getting this information out there, but also supporting campaigns and initiatives in their states and on the ground.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to add the fact that United Church of Christ has been a part of this movement from the very beginning, commissioning the report, Toxic Waste and Race. And Dr. Charles Lee was instrumental, was the person who put that report together. It was commissioned by United Church of Christ. So I just wanted to highlight how long UCC has been in the fight, and the AME Church. We can go all the way back to where the first march was held, first protest in 1968 for the Black sanitation workers who were dealing with horrendous conditions. Ground zero was at Clayton AME in Tennessee. So just wanted to say these two denominations have been so instrumental in this movement with little recognition. So I'm lifting both of them up as the starters, and now the help to finishers and builders. So just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead. I'll speak after you, Ms. Primrose.
Well, I just wanted to thank Robin for that acknowledgement as well. And I do want to mention that the AME Church did release its climate change resolution in 2016, which embarked on collaboration around environmental justice and really bringing people together from all areas, not only environmental groups, but also governmental decision makers, community-based organizations, and others to really galvanize around this issue, because it is certainly broad, yet it also connects all of us in different ways. And so I think, as Reverend Silver and Robin both mentioned, when you can take a collective approach, I like would you say a movement builder? You're a movement builder, Reverend Silver. When you can take a collective approach to these monumental issues, then you can break down the scope of it and the enormity of it, where people feel like they don't have power, and really chip away at this inequity that we've been talking about, particularly policies and regulations, but also the social action piece as well, and bringing that down to the individual about what they can do in their own home in addition to their community. So I think these kind of connections are really important, and also making sure to bring in all of the stakeholders, because everybody plays a role in making change.
Yeah, I would like to just to add to that, and I appreciate the acknowledgement as well, Robin. But you're a UCC leader, and I appreciate your leadership on these issues and our work together. But just highlight, I know that it's about 10 years ago, actually, as our denominations, we're known for our sort of first in the faith community, and our denomination became the first to pass a resolution calling for divestment from fossil fuel companies. This resolution pointed to a range of inequities that result from the impact of climate change while also highlighting the need for a just and compassionate shift away from fossil fuels. So there's been a lot of work happening in the United Church of Christ in that regard, especially in terms of how financial investments are done within our local churches, within our pension institution, the pension boards. So that's one of the ways in which we're still doing work on a very important environmental and climate justice issue. And then just a few years ago, we became, again, one of the first Christian denominations to endorse the Green New Deal. And that resolution called upon churches to advocate for policies and legislation that advance the goals of the Green New Deal. And so we're still working on that as well.
No, absolutely. I love that you made a point to mention that, Robin, because definitely I do think from my experience, I do think that sometimes may get overlooked that y'all been in the fight. So I love that you made sure that you wanted to uplift the voices, just everything that just occurred. I feel like even when you did that, Edna, you jumped in and said, I appreciate that. And it's just very collective. And I appreciate that. So this question is for Robin. Advocating for climate equity often involves working at the intersection of environmental and social justice. And as you've mentioned, that is a space where Interfaith Power and Light, it works extensively. So could you share some initiatives and strategies your organization is implementing to promote climate equity, particularly within the DMV area?
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, Interfaith Power and Light in the DMV, we work with various congregations, hundreds across this area, different denominations, different faith traditions, to educate about climate change and how to respond and things that we can do to make creation better and mitigate as well as adapt to the environment that we're living in and with all the climate catastrophes. I am focused primarily on the Black church. I also work with other faith traditions, but my primary focus. And, I want to kind of say that environmental justice to me includes anything that results in health disparities in BIPOC communities, low-income communities, communities that are left behind. That includes not just air pollution, but industrial sites, waste dumping, breathing various toxins, as well as water safety, food, swamps as well, urban space. All of these things, including climate change, because these communities are the most impacted. Unfortunately, they're the least helped, or they're the least to recover. They're the last to recover, if they recover at all. So, we focus, and my focus is building power in these communities and, helping communities through faith organizations access funds and access resources and build knowledge and know their power and how to connect with various legislators on policy issues before they become impacting their community without their knowledge. So at IPL, we do a lot of bringing together groups. I just brought together a group of Black faith leaders during this conference to hear from Reverend Heber Brown, who works as head of the Black Church Food Security Network, which promotes food sovereignty and gets congregations to grow food on their land. A lot of times the land is just left, and now we can do something with it that will help the community. So that's one of the areas that I'm working on with Green the Church, building building power with various denominational leaders coming together to figure out ways in which we can educate our congregations as well as the community. In terms of the Inflation Reduction Act, I've been doing a lot of presentations to congregations about what kinds of resources are available as they roll out. As we hear about solar, the solar panels and how you can go solar, that area it has become a little more complicated with Inflation Reduction because there's monies that can be accessed, but the question is how. So those are the kinds of discussions we're trying to have with our congregations to lead them to the money, basically, and so that they can start doing things, putting solar panels, energy efficiency, getting involved in electric vehicles, even though there's some challenges with that. We need to know the challenges and how it's being produced, and we also need to know what is going on so that we're not left behind. So these are the things that we're working on. Some of I know I'm going because we're on, but there's a lot of different programs besides the Green the Church affiliate chapter, which is my biggest project, bringing us together. This particular project, air quality monitoring, working with the UCC, as well as working with Edna on the EJ ministry. I am so excited that not only Reed has an EJ ministry, but the whole second district of the AME Church is implementing EJ ministries across all of their hundreds of churches. This is phenomenal for me, so I'm so excited that that's happening. Working on also a NOAA project on the Eastern Shore, looking at Black churches and how they can handle climate catastrophes, because they are hit the most, because they're, the Eastern Shore is always hit, right? Flooding and all kinds of other things. What are they going to do? How can we help them? We also have a big campaign on Beyond Gas, which is measuring gas in people's homes as well as outside to see gas leaks, monitoring. We're finding so many people are living way above the amount of gas that should be released in their kitchen with gas stoves. We're trying to educate. We're not trying to help people make decisions. We're just trying to show them so that they can make wise decisions about where they live and how they live. One other thing there's a DC initiative for lead exposure and asthma prevention, with various organizations coming together and trying to push the DC water to make sure that they replace the pipes in communities of color, because they always get left behind. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on, and we're in the mix. So that gives you an idea.
Thank you so much for that, Robin. Literally, my next question was regarding the Environmental Justice Ministry within the AME Church. So thank you for that segue. Thank you for that introduction, I should say. So my question is to you, Edna, as the leader of the Environmental Justice Ministry within the AME Church, could you share some primary objectives and goals within addressing environmental justice issues? And we did hear from Robin speaking about the AME Church's rich history of involvement within social justice movements. So we'd love to hear from you regarding this specific groundbreaking ministry.
Yes, and I am equally as excited as Robin about this ministry initiative. So the Environmental Justice Ministry Initiative is in the 2nd District, as Robin mentioned, which encompasses DC, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. It also is comprised of about 400 churches. So there really is an opportunity to expand that reach and reach communities of color who really need to be empowered and learn more about their surroundings and the impacts on their lives. So there are 4 pillars that are the central focus of the ministry. Pillar 1 is sustaining the quality of water. Pillar 2 is keeping God's environment safe and clean. Pillar 3 is protecting God's land and air. And Pillar 4 is inspiring intergenerational justice action. And that pillar really focuses not only on the advocacy piece, but also engaging youth which is going to be critically important if we have any chance at all of resolving some of these issues. So our senior pastor, Mark Whitlock Jr., is the chair of the initiative for the 2nd District. And so again, he asked me if I would be interested and willing to provide some guidance to the ministry. And we've been working on building a little bit of a groundswell and engaging members to be involved. So far, what we've done is we've been working not only with IPL, but also Robin connected us with Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake, who have been fantastic in providing Faith Green Leaders training. They have a Faith Green Leaders training program, and I've done a couple of webinars with faith organizations from all over. And what it does is it helps you create a team at your church. And it goes through all of the steps on getting buy-in from your leaders, getting buy-in from your congregation, creating an action plan, gives you some ideas of partners, all kinds of guidebooks and videos. They're amazing. And so through them, we were able to work with the Maryland Sea Grant, who came in and did an environmental site assessment of the physical footprint of the church. So we have a retention pond, we have all kinds of forests, and there's stormwater things happening. It was really cool and interesting, but also laid the groundwork for projects going forward. In addition to that, we received trees from Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake, helped to connect us with Chesapeake Bay Trust Urban Trees Program, which has a goal to plant 5 million trees in urban underserved communities by the year 2031. So we got some leftover trees and planted 15 of them at Reed Temple. So we're all in for the next cycle to do that. And so I think that, again, working with Robin and the education piece, we're going to be planning webinars for the congregation, increasing information, working with our youth ministry. And I think one of the things that's interesting about this ministry is that it crosses all areas. So we're really looking forward to creating a community around in not only environmental justice, but sort of personal and community stewardship. So it's really pretty neat. So we're not quite a year old yet, but we've hit the ground running. And also we're excited to work with SIEGE and EPA on the air quality grant as well, placing those monitors in churches around the area.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think you are all making this really nice for me, because I'm literally about to transition. I think we could shift gears and kind of speak about the actual initiative and the collaborative and what we've been doing within the Mid-Atlantic region surrounding air quality monitoring within our partnerships. So just for a brief background for our listeners, the Mid-Atlantic Data Justice Collaborative is the SIEGE's Bezos Earth Fund funded project. I do lead the project. I'm the project manager. So within this initiative, this collaborative, we are aiming to create hyperlocal air quality monitoring networks within the region. As of right now, we are focusing on within the DMV. And we will be spreading out as we move forward and as we gain or create more relationships and get into more collaborations with other organizations. So as we've mentioned, we have been working with the UCC and IPL and the AME Church. Within these partnerships, the aim has been to create this hyperlocal network with 50 churches from each organization. And we have had some hiccups, but we've had a lot of successes, because within the center, we do focus on creating as many hyperlocal and air quality networks, as possible. We have air quality monitors within Curtis Bay. We have air quality monitors within, most recently, Fairmont Heights in Maryland, as well as we work with the Prince George's County High Schools to enhance the air quality data that is being collected to further forward the environmental justice movement and further help advocate for these communities that don't always necessarily have these resources, or as Robin had mentioned, collaboration is key to getting things done. And the more voices, the more data as well, the more we can't be silenced, I should just say. So this is a really extremely important initiative. And I just also wanted to, I know we've all within this conference been reiterating air quality and the harmful effects of bad air quality within communities. You've probably heard particulate matter, PM 2.5, maybe 1,000 times within this conference. However, I just want to reiterate that some of these sources are emitted directly from construction sites, unpaved roads, fields, smokestacks, fires, traffic smoke. And because you don't see it, you don't pay attention to it. I know within the space of most recently the wildfires that had occurred, we were seeing elevated spikes within air quality censoring. And the great thing about having these sensors is that they're public. You can just log on and see what's happening now. And I've seen, not only within our center, but I've seen people sharing these maps, sharing screenshots of the spikes within these levels, and sharing. People can actually see the data now and see that, yikes, this is not good. This can't be good. So this, again, we've been in partnership with the UCC, with AME and IPL for, I'm going to say, coming on to a year soon. We've had workshops. Initially, we want to make sure that the partnership is genuine, and that when we do speak to church folk or whomever else is going to be a part of the partnership, that you are understanding what's happening. As Robin said, educating, you're really understanding what's happening, so that you can see the problem. And if you want to be a part of the solution, you have the opportunity to work with your own church and really feel comfortable. So within this project, we work with, I would say, we work with Reverend Silver, and we are connected to his network within the UCC Church. That's kind of the best way to say it, and we do so for the AME as well. And I think we have been able to successfully install monitors across the DMV region. As of right now, we are at almost hitting our 50 mark. We're at 30 something for UCC, and for the AME, we are closing on 40. So we are almost there. There have been, with air quality, with sensor installations, there is a bit of a need for flexibility, because if we do go to install these monitors within rural areas, we have to ensure that communication is on point. We have to make sure that we are relaying the information as early as possible to folks, so that they can really understand what's happening. If there are questions, I should say, if also building that trust with folks as well is important, because it's understandable if you are not aware of the work that maybe Sage does. It's understanding to be maybe a little hesitant at first. So what we do is we ensure that we communicate with church members and try to address any concerns ASAP. And also I'll let them know that we will be handling the installations. You do not need to climb on the ladder, risk yourself. We will handle the hard work. All you need to do is if you want to look at the data and see what the monitor is picking up or I should say relaying to the Purple Air live map, then you can just log on and see what's happening. And we do provide updates as well. And if anything is necessary, we will be out there in a jiffy to rectify any wrongs. So I know I've spoken a lot, but I did want to shift into the collaborative itself. And my first question would be for Reverend Silver. How does the UCC, with this involvement within, actually, I'm sorry, please let me adjust that question. Within your experience, what do you believe are some key challenges or obstacles that you've encountered within sharing the message of environmental justice within faith-based communities, if within this data justice collaborative, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, thank you for that, Ariel. We haven't, surprisingly, we have not had as much challenges at all. I think the few, in terms of the desire and the interest in wanting to participate, where we've had some concerns, to get directly to your question, is one or two churches, because of their historic designation of their buildings and concern about harming that, they chose not to participate, and that's a small number of churches. But for the majority of our churches, once we sit down and have a conversation with them about what this all means, how this fits into who we are called to be as people of faith, as well as the work that we have historically done as United Church of Christ, people are particularly on board, and sort of what you laid out in terms of the process that Siege takes to come and do the actual installation. I think those were the real major questions. Well, do we have to get up on a ladder? Do we have to check this thing out and everything? So once we sort of calm those anxieties and fears, people are like, okay, yeah, let's do this. So like, in fact, you mentioned the numbers for us at United Church of Christ. Just this past week, because of a few of our churches, the way our church sort of operates in the summertime, things sort of like gets very quiet and people are unresponsive. And about 6 churches that I've been trying to reach and have conversations with pastors and leaders, they finally got back to me this week, and it's like, oh yeah, sign us on. We're ready for the installation to happen. So know that you and Clay will have some installations to do at the end of this month, because folks are starting to sign back up, to follow back up with me. So it's been pretty good in that regard, and we've done enough education across the UCC around environmental racism, environmental justice, that people sort of gravitate to this issue and want to work on this. As we just discussed a moment ago, many of our churches have solar panels already. They have the pollinator gardens, all of those things that we've sort of worked with them to do in terms of reducing their carbon footprint and making their facilities energy efficient. They're already on board on that and sort of looking for what's the next thing to do. So we're hoping to take advantage of this moment around this particular initiative to really sort of build community and build a network among our churches, so that our churches are not resigned to doing this work in isolation from one another, but to do it in community, and to be strategic as a collective organizing unit, as one unit, and trying to understand the collective impact that they can have if they come together and do this work together, not just as United Church of Christ, but with other like-minded organizations like those represented here who share the same goals and share the same values.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'm happy to hear that. I remember, I understood, and we all understood that a lot of organizations kind of, some slow down during the summer and some ramp up. So it's understandable. And I think we've mentioned with you, like, once we're kind of on the church members' time. So once they confirm, we will organize, and essentially we try our best to kind of cluster these installations, because it logistically it's more efficient that way. So thank you for that. I know on our end, that was one of our challenges, making sure that once someone confirms, we're like, oh yes, that's great. We want to go out and do it as soon as possible. But as I mentioned, the aim is to, so for example, if we're looking at the location of, let's say Southwest DC, I'm just gonna say Southwest DC, we would want to if we invited some churches to collaborate, we would want to ensure that we have 3 within a cluster that we can communicate with, and then go out, speak, have these conversations, really be on the ground, talking to these churches, helping them, guiding through any challenges, any questions they had, but really kind of getting those installations out within that day. So that was something that on our end, it was, I would say, was more of a challenge. Wanting to go out immediately to do that, but then also having to kind of go back to the team and say, okay, maybe we should set a specific time. And I know we kind of got on that page, but naturally it doesn't always work like that. So that was, yeah. So thank you for that. Additionally, I know one of the challenges we encountered, but something we encountered within the AME space was a lot of churches were closed because of COVID, like the actual church buildings. And unfortunately, it's extremely sad. So we did have some on the list, and then we had to kind of come back to speak with Reed Temple and, come back to our list and say, well, maybe we could start reaching out to this church. So, I mean, okay, it's always great to pivot and proceed and, really try to communicate with others that want to be a part of it. But I think that was something that we do have bi-weekly check-ins with each of our partners so that we can rectify any of these changes that occur. So thank you for that. So on your end, Robin, so I know, can you speak to maybe, I'm sorry, can you speak to any upcoming projects or initiatives within the Mid-Atlantic region by Interfaith Power and Light? And if there are any specific air quality projects. I know Reverend Silver spoke about a specific air quality project within UCC. So you have the floor to chat about it.
Okay, so I kind of want to go back a little bit in talking about the region, pull some statistics. American Lung Association, which is one of the websites I look at, has unfortunately rated Prince George's County, Maryland, Baltimore City, a couple other, Anne Arundel, as well as Hartford County, F. They gave it an F in high ozone levels. And what those are, just for those of you who don't know, it relates to pollutants that are emitted by cars, power plants, ground level pollutants that we breathe. So there's several areas in Maryland that got rated an F, in Washington, D.C. as well by the American Lung Association. I guess fortunately for Northern Virginia as well as Virginia, I don't see any Fs in Virginia. I mean, we are so close. So how is this happening, right? I used to be on the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, ACPAC, which is Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee. And so we got to look at the 13 or so monitors that the EPA has placed in the region and saw how out of compliance we are in Prince George's County in particular, but in the area. So, what people need to be concerned about and know, to me, is to keep track of what we're being rated. I mean, how if you live in this area, if you live in another area, look on the American Lung Association, pull up your area. You could see what you're being rated. I also always, the airnow.gov, which has the ratings associated with air quality. And as you all know, from, with the wildfires from Canada, it just devastated the whole country with cold purples. I mean, we had never seen that kind of pollution in the air, and all of you saw it. It was the skies. Even now, we see the air quality deteriorating. If there's anything impacting Canada, I mean, which it's just unheard of, right? To come all the way down and down south, right? So I just wanted to bring up some resources for people watching this, to know what is going on in your community with regard to air. These monitors are monitors that will be also supplement the monitors from the EPA, which are so spread out. They don't encompass the air that we breathe because they're so far apart. Yes, they capture the bigger picture, but we're living in the little picture. So we need our air monitored so we know before I go outside that I'm not going to have an asthma attack later, okay? Because I'm breathing something local, right? So one of the things I love about this project is when the aggregation of the data is put forth, and we see what actually is happening in the region as we look at all of these monitors that are being placed around the region at different churches and different facilities. This is so exciting because we need to know this from the ground up. We need to know what we are breathing, what we're eating, what we're ingesting, because this is our bodies, our kingdom. This is our sanctuary here. So I'm so excited that UCC and AME have been asked to place these monitors at churches. And for any congregation that is listening, or anybody that is listening, please do it. We need this data. We need to know what is going on at the local level so we can put forth information so that we can build policies, and we can take this information to our legislators and say, this is what we have. We need something for these communities. This data is going to be used to make policy. So please participate. I'm going to stop right there.
No, Robin, that was great. That was wonderful. And I thank you for that. I do appreciate that because it does give way more perspective to the audience. So thank you for that. And I actually have just pulled up the Purple Air map so that we can share with the audience and show you what the sensor looks like on the real-time air map and how it's collecting the data. So I'm going to share my screen. And also, Robin just mentioned that during the wildfire event, the levels had reached purple. Some of them had even reached maroon, and I know people were concerned if it was going to reach black, which isn't really even included, but it was that bad. So can you see my screen right now? Yes, you can. Okay, so folks, so I just searched Reed Temple monitor. It is this one reading 21 right now at this Glendale location. And the reading right now is satisfactory according to the air quality index. So essentially, green is satisfactory. And once it reaches different colorings, different levels, measurements of air quality data, it will let you know when it's become hazardous. So, you know, red is that space of it's bad. You really need to protect yourself. However, when it gets to orange, it's definitely a space of with people who are within sensitive groups. So that would be people with asthma or other respiratory illnesses, that they are more likely to be affected. But the general public will be less likely affected. So within this space, we ensure, because this is a public map, that anybody can view this data, we ensure that we are not actually adding any personal data to to these sensors. So for example, when this was registered, the only thing that actually is registered is the geolocation of the sensor. So no, the church name isn't actually, well, we did make sure to actually put the church name. Actually, I'm sorry about that. We wanted to make sure we added the church name or the building name or the organization name so that we can find it easily within the map, or just simply do a church within this church, a search which within this search engine, search block, I should say, and that would immediately go to the sensor that we have registered within the Purple Air network. You can also download all of this data for your own viewing. So as you can see, I can download images, but also I can download a CSV file or an XLS file. And these are both sheet files. So this is a Excel file, so that you can view what the data is looking like across a period of time. As you can see, there is a spike. There has been a spike at this particular AME location. And you can also see that there are other AME churches that we have included within this network. So it has clustered some of the AME churches within a grouping, is what I should say. I'm going to stop sharing right now, but a lot of the levels of air quality data, I should say, would differ based on morning to evening or seasonal. So it's really important to see where these dips and where these rises are, and how close these communities are to the pollution sources. So specifically, the Reed Temple is right off of 193. And I found that extremely interesting when we went out there to install the sensor. So that would be something to watch for if the 193 traffic is causing spikes within that area, that particular sensor. And the church it's a beautiful church, but it is right off of the highway. So that, I'm sure, is affecting congregation members without even then with no knowledge of understanding what's happening. So that's kind of an idea of what the project is surrounding, and we do that for each sensor and each location and each church that we want to participate. If anybody has any more thoughts or anything to add, please, you can add right now. If not, I'm going to transition us to audience questions. We do have a couple, and this session is supposed to end at 11:45, so I want to make sure we're on time. And I think so we'll have about 10 minutes to answer some audience questions, and there are a couple. So what is your preference?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for the partnership with the Air Quality Grant, and really being able to pivot where needed to ensure that we're able to get the 50 churches in our particular area of responsibility. And I just want to emphasize what Robin said about data, and you did as well, that when you have the data, you can't be denied. And so this is really going to be impactful for all those communities that are participating, because again, once you're aware, then you can do something about it. And a lot of times people just don't think about it. I mean, honestly, having that cloud come from Canada was a real eye-opener for people when you really think about what you're breathing every day and the difference in how people felt while that cloud passed, and not only the duration, but how long it took to pass. So, you think about wildfires thousands of miles away impacting us in Maryland. I think it punctuates the fact that we are all connected, whether we want to be or not. We are all connected, and what we do in one area impacts another. I think the other thing about data made me think of water, because again, I talked about water infrastructure. And, when I went to oversee that program over in rural development, I didn't know that there are over 2 million people who don't have running water and sanitation. I thought everyone in the US had that. That's, a basic human right and a baseline, but that is not the case. And race is the strongest determinant for not having access to water and sanitation. So again, when you can put numbers behind these injustices, then it really can spark action.
Thank you so much for that, Edna. I wholeheartedly agree, and I know I could speak for my panelists as well and others. Thank you for that. So at this point, I am going to take a question from the live chat. Okay. Okay, so this one is from Nikki. Can you guys talk a little bit about funding sources available to churches, grants in particular, to make needed structural improvements before being able to green their buildings?
Well, I'm not aware of actually any grants, but in the United Church of Christ, we have a long-time ministry called the Church Building and Loan Fund, and it is a church fund, not a bank, but that fund has helped a number of our congregations and congregations in other denominations as well to do community development projects, both on their facilities to reorganize or redevelop their facilities for community purposes, and also to buy parcels of land that may be in their community to do community ministry. So that fund is available for churches to access, even if you're not a UCC local church congregation. In fact, they have a online conference that is happening next week on the 21st and the 22nd. It's free of charge, so you can go to CB, make sure I get the website correct so I can share that information, cblfund.org, cblfund.org, and you can learn a lot more about that institution. They're actually one of our strategic partners as a conference and working with a number of our churches around reimagining their ministry and their buildings in their local communities. And of course, environmental racism, environmental justice at the heart of any work that we do in that regard.
So, I was going to say also, with the infrastructure grant, the grants from the Infrastructure Act, as well as the grants and funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, there are some ways in which you can use those funding. Of course, the Inflation Reduction Act is focused on climate issues, so like energy efficiency. And a lot of buildings need new windows, to make new insulation. There's a whole bunch of grants associated or monies associated with that kind of infrastructure, solar. But a lot of congregations also need new roofs, need new funding for those sources. And we're trying to figure out how we can help those congregations with the funding that is out there, because if my roof is bad, I can't get the solar panels, right? So I got to do that first. So those are the challenges that we're talking to congregations about. So there's some private funding that's out there as well, foundations that are trying to fill in the gap, as well as green banks that are trying to fill in the gap. What I would suggest for anyone who wants to know, Interfaith Power and Light is having various webinars that are going to be discussing funding sources. So please, check out our website. The national organization, Interfaith Power and Light, is having various webinars on inflation reduction, as well as the infrastructure monies, to because a lot of the infrastructure money is coming down from the state. So your state also is engaged in allocating the funds. So depending on where the funds are coming from and which federal agency it's coming from. Some of it is coming from, is going to trickle to the state. The state decides. Some of it is going to be directly through the federal government. So what I'd suggest, because it's complicated, I'm sure, is stay in touch with us at Interfaith Power and Light. We will try to share as much as we know, and also Rewire America is doing a wonderful job passing out information about policy and where to go get money. There's a calculator on Rewire America for the Inflation Reduction benefits for individuals. There's policy information for nonprofits and churches included as well, congregations. You don't have to be the 501c3. In a lot of cases, you can use a fiscal agent or partner so that the funds can go to a particular place. This can be complicated, so there are assistants. Your organization as well, Ariel. Siege and your staff is also going to provide technical assistance. They've been designated as helping the community to understand where the money is, what kinds of grants you can get for what kinds of projects that you're working on. So please reach out. I don't know if it's to you, Ariel, but I'm sure you have a designated person that you want them to reach out to get help because it's there and it's free. So we got to get people engaged in TICTAC and the help that your organization provides. So that, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in before, I know we're close on time. Those are exceptional recommendations. And I also want to bring up the Environmental Protection Agency, Region 3 for us in the DC area. You can definitely check with EPA as well, because they have a number of grant programs. The USDA Rural Development Agency has grants for individual homeowners, where if you have a well or septic tank that you need to be repaired or serviced, you can get either a low cost or no cost loan or grant for those kinds of services. The other piece is the Chesapeake Bay. There's all kinds of money around that. I talked about the Chesapeake Bay Trust, but the watershed, it not only includes DC, Maryland, Virginia, but also Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New York. So there's a lot of money around that. Even the U.S. Forest Service has a watershed assistance program that we're hoping to get funding for to address stormwater issues. So I think in this case, it really comes to mind about the community, where we just need to know where to look, because it can be a little daunting. And so organizations like IPL, Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake, Blacks of the Chesapeake, and others are just so helpful to navigate that bureaucracy sometimes.
Thank you, panelists. I think we could probably take this last question. Robin, this is directed to you. I participated in IPL's Electrify Your Hope webinar last week. Great information. Any way to share this info with non-IPL congregations/partners?
Yes, the information is shared either on our YouTube channel, which is Interfaith IPL DMV YouTube channel, or if you pull up Interfaith Power and Light DMV or DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, you should see the information on our site, or connecting you to what happened, the webinar, and our information with regard to that. As well as we usually broadcast stuff live on Facebook. So you can always check IPL's Facebook, IPL DMV's Facebook page, and you'll see a lot of things that we stream live. So please check those out, or send me an email and I'll find it for you at robin@gwipl.org. Sorry.
Thank you, Robin. You have one more. It seems quick. So Robin, can you share the information for Beyond Gas, in particular, someone who can participate in community events to help residents?
Again, if you check out our website or email me, I can connect you. But just essentially, we're doing Beyond Gas testing in Montgomery County, as well as in DC, and we've also expanding to the Baltimore area, and we're going to try to do this testing around the state as much as we can. Of course, it's funding, and we're working with partners. So yeah, if you let me know where you're located, I can connect you to whomever needs to be connected.
Thank you. And this concludes our 1D, Day 4, Session 1D, Mid-Atlantic Justice Collaborative, an overview session. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference if you are able to join and participate, and hope you stay blessed. Thank you.